Somewhere along the way, we started convincing ourselves or being convinced that poverty was a virtue. I don't think that's true. That somehow having less money makes you a better person. Because first of all, money isn't real. Let's start there first and foremost. It isn't real. All that happens in the world is that value is exchanged, and if I exchange value to you and you have no value to exchange in return, you give me a placeholder for that value, which we have agreed as a society is money. And that placeholder for value, I can collect those tokens and exchange them for things that are valuable to me. And things that dictate how valuable something is include the utility of it, how many people want it, how few of it there is. Supply, demand. Those are some of the things that dictate value. Now, possessing more of these tokens that you can exchange for more doesn't inherently mean that you have lost your morals along the way, or just because you don't have those tokens, you're somehow a better person. That's just something that I inherently don't believe. And so money is just a receipt. It's proof that value is exchanged. If I create value, you have nothing to trade back. You give it to me, and that's that. Now, that doesn't mean that every wealthy person is ethical. Of course not, because the world isn't fair. And there are people who manipulate markets, people who commit fraud, who've broken laws and didn't face any real consequences. Some examples of this is if you watch The Big Short, if you watch War Dogs, if you watch one of my favorite movies, The Wolf of Wall Street, you will see that, there are people who just manipulate spaces in markets and as a result make a lot of money from it. And in the case of The Big Short, a lot of innocent people were hurt. And that movie is based on a true story. A lot of innocent people were hurt. Big Short, the housing bubble bursts. A lot of people lose houses, jobs, livelihoods. And the people who had made the mistakes, who had overvalued, who had shifted the market one way, bubble bursts, they get a slap on the wrist and they get given more money to try and figure something else out again. No real punishment for the really bad things that they were doing. War Dogs, they sold ammunition. They were arms dealers. They do what they do. At the end of it, they made about 100 million. One of the guys gets 4 million prison. The other guy pleads guilty, gets about 7 months. And by 2022, they were open to bid once more. The Wolf of Wall Street, the reason why it's one of my favorite movies is that he could justify his claim, also based on a real life story, where he was selling penny stocks, but he was selling to the rich. And so he ripped off people who made a lot of money. Still terrible because he didn't really create value. He sold people things and he passed them off as false. The reason why it's one of my favorite movies is because it really gives you a proper look under the hood, again based on a true story. And Jordan Belfort, again, slap on the wrist. He's out today, living life. Even when he was in prison, it was a luxury prison. And so it really was my first insight into the realities of the financial world, and that there are some bad players out there. But just because there are some bad players doesn't mean that the money inherently within itself is a bad thing. It is just a placeholder for value. That's simply all it is. It's all it ever has been and all it ever will be. And so the system isn't perfect, and yet where the people make mistakes is because some people who become rich unethically, they conclude that wealth itself is immoral. And I don't think those are the same things, because money doesn't have morality. People do. And having the money doesn't determine what you do with it. If one of Hormozi's favorite sayings, he wished for a weapon but not the skills to wield it. Meaning, if you don't have the skills to wield that potential energy that money and power can be, then you are going to use those in a way that, whether you harm them through ignorance, not knowing any better, or you harm them purposefully, you can hurt a lot of people when you come into possession of a lot of these tokens of value. But the tokens of value themselves don't have morality. I don't like when we tend to humanize money and give it character traits, talk about attracting it. We talk about it liking this and feeling that and doing that. And I've done that too. I've been guilty of that as well. But ultimately, the more I see the world as I believe it is truly, the more you start to understand that there's absolutely nothing humanoid about it. It's just a placeholder for exchange value. That's simply it. It's a receipt for exchange value. It has no morals, and the overwhelming majority of businesses survive because they solve problems, they employ people, they create products, they build systems, and on a long enough time horizons, companies that compound trust are the ones that last the longest, and the ones that screw people over, the business people that are inherently selfish in their dealings with other people tend to lose money over time. People don't want to do deals with you when you're not a good person. They might use you in the short term as leverage, but over a long enough time horizon, they will want to move away from you, and they will only be or deal with you as far as they can use you as well. And if you're the only one who receives value when there is value around you, people will begin to recognize that and will go for the person where everyone wins, everyone eats when they eat. That's the person that people tend to want to eat with more so. That's the people whose table people want to be at very often. And I think you will find that a lot of businesses, especially that have been around for a really long time, have done well. Not just, you don't just have to do well for your clients, you have to do well by your employees, by your vendors. But there's so many people in these micro ecosystems that businesses are, that need to be happy over a very long time horizon in order for a business to be successful long term. And businesses that don't deal in that way, in those ethical ways, will tend to erode trust over time and eventually go bust as a result. Now, people find ways around these. They circumvent, they hide things, they lie, of course. Because as I've pointed out with the examples from the movies that are based on real life, the system isn't it isn't fair. It isn't rigged in our favor. But understanding that it's unfair, you can begin to play the game and begin to wield a few of those tokens of influence and change people's lives in a positive and correct manner, and start to play life out in the ways that you believe it should be. Because if we're not out here participating in the economy in that way and making sure that there are more good players than there are bad, then the bad will prevail, because they will be the only ones who are providing any sort of value. And that's when we get into the situations where we're all in very, very big trouble. And so it's not believing that there are people with money, there are bad people. The dangerous belief is that somehow being broke makes you virtuous, because it doesn't. Poverty isn't humility. Poverty isn't character. Poverty is simply a financial condition. It irks me whenever I saw J. Cole driving around in his old beat up, well, whatever car, it was his first car, and he was selling CDs out of the trunk and whatever the case. And that's not the part that irked me. Cole, one of my favorite artists, he can do whatever he wants, bro. It's his life. What irked me was people in the comments saying, "Oh my gosh, he's so humble." And I saw a response one time that was like, because he's driving around in an old beat up car, he's humble? Like, and it reminded me of my favorite line from The Wolf of Wall Street, that is, there is no nobility in poverty. I really seriously like hold that close to my heart. Anytime that I think to myself, I look at someone who has more or has done more, is worth more, and any inkling of that instinct that is to shun them, to shame them, to think that they are bad people because they have more than other people, I think to myself, well, there's no inherent bad in wealth, and there's no nobility in poverty, because money doesn't have morals. People do. That's the ultimate thing that I think we need to hold on to, and we need to keep coming back to, is that there is no nobility in poverty. And so money doesn't make you good, money doesn't make you evil. It simply gives you more opportunities to become more of whoever you already are. And so if you're someone who wants to do good, wants to do positive, wants to influence people's lives in a positive way, having more money can give you the opportunity to recruit more people to go on your big mission that is going to affect the world in a positive way. Having more money can give you more opportunities to bless people around you, to change people's lives, to attract the attention, gather the attention and direction, and you make your offer, and hopefully your offer is not just good for you, it's good for the people around you, it's good for society, and God would approve. You know, when you get into those types of situations where you're led by those types of core tenets and values, then you'll find yourself in a space where money will find itself around you, money will want to be around you. And when that is the case, and you know the direction you want to point it in, then you will become a person of value. You will get a lot of value, that you are worth. You will get a lot of these tokens of value, and that won't inherently change who you are and what you're about. There will not be a point where you'll have to sacrifice the good in you in order to receive those things. And I think it's very, very important to remember that there's no nobility in poverty. The nobility is in the integrity, and you can have integrity with 10 Rand or 10 billion Rand. And so don't let the unfairness of the system convince you that success itself is wrong. The fight is for fairness. The fight is for building ethical businesses. The fight is to create value, to earn honestly, and to remember that there is no nobility in poverty. There's only nobility in the way that you choose to live. That's it. Not going to keep you for too long today. Main takeaway, realistically, I really can't hammer this home enough. There's no nobility in poverty. And so go out there, provide value, receive your tokens in exchange, and live long and prosper. Continue to make your life better, people around you's lives better. Continue to do the things that it takes in order to advance your life, people around you's lives, in a way that would make yourself proud, your loved ones proud, that would make God proud. Thank you for watching. I've been Sage, standing on business. Signing out.